ancient China civilization that has shaped the world for thousands of years. From the mighty emperors who ruled vast dynasties to the fierce revolution that changed everything. But what if we told you that the story of ancient China is far more complex than you ever imagined? Join us on a journey through time where power, intrigue, and revolution collide, revealing secrets of a culture that once held the world in its grasp. Ready to uncover the mysteries of ancient China? Let's dive in. The history of ancient China begins over 4,000 years ago, with the rise of its first recorded dynasties. These early civilizations laid the foundation for what would become one of the most powerful and influential cultures in world history. But how did this vast empire come to be? The Xia dynasty, often considered the first in Chinese history, emerged around 2070 BCE. Although much of its history remains shrouded in mystery, the Xia played a crucial role in shaping early Chinese society, known for their advancements in agriculture, bronze metallurgy, and social organization. The Xia dynasty laid the groundwork for future civilizations. Following the Xia came the Shang dynasty around 1600 BCE, which brought with it major technological advancements. The Shang were the first to leave behind written records, some of the earliest examples of Chinese writing on oracle bones. These records tell us about their religious practices, their governance, and their belief in the afterlife. The Shang also made significant advances in bronze casting, creating weapons, tools, and ritual vessels that were highly prized. The discovery of royal tombs, with their rich offerings of jade, gold, and bronze, shows the wealth and power that the Shang accumulated over centuries. But it was the Zhou dynasty, beginning in 1046 BCE, that truly revolutionized China. The Zhou expanded China's territory and developed the concept of the mandate of heaven, a belief that the emperor ruled with divine approval. This idea would influence Chinese political thought for thousands of years, shaping how emperors were chosen and how they governed. The Zhou also introduced new agricultural techniques that increased food production and helped sustain a growing population. However, with great power came great conflict. By the end of the Zhou period, China was divided into numerous warring states, each fighting for control and dominance. This era, known as the Warring States period, was one of chaos and constant warfare. But it also brought about profound philosophical developments. Confucius, Laozi, and other thinkers during this time laid the foundation for the major schools of thought that would dominate Chinese culture for centuries: Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism. These ideas would shape China's society, government, and worldview in profound ways. The ancient dynasties of China were marked by rapid changes and challenges. But through it all, they established a legacy of culture, technology, and philosophy that would echo down the centuries. Their achievements would pave the way for the rise of one of the most enduring empires in history. After centuries of warfare and division, China finally found unity under the rule of the Qin dynasty. Beginning in 221 BCE, the Qin dynasty, though short-lived, played a crucial role in shaping the course of Chinese history. And its emperor Qin Shi Huang became one of the most remarkable figures in Chinese antiquity. Qin Shi Huang was born as Ying Zheng, the king of the state of Qin, during the Warring States period. At just 13 years old, he ascended to the throne, but it was until he was in his late 20s that he took control of his kingdom. Over the next decade, he managed to unite China, bringing an end to the chaotic and violent period of the Warring States. Through military strength, political strategy, and ruthless consolidation of power, he conquered the other 6 warring states and declared himself the first emperor of China in 221 BCE. His rule brought unprecedented changes to China. The emperor enacted sweeping reforms that sought to centralize power and establish a unified empire. One of his first moves was to standardize the weight and measurement systems across China, making trade and commerce more efficient. He also introduced a unified writing system, which helped to bridge regional differences and promote communication throughout the empire. This unification was essential for the survival and strength of China, as it allowed the different regions to work together under a common structure. Perhaps one of Qin Shi Huang's most famous contributions to Chinese civilization is the construction of the Great Wall of China. The wall was initially built as a series of smaller walls by various states, but under Qin's rule, it was expanded and connected, creating a formidable defense against nomadic tribes to the north. Although the wall would be modified and extended by later dynasties, its roots lay firmly in the Qin era, symbolizing China's strength and determination to protect its borders. Another monumental project was the construction of the emperor's tomb, which became the site of one of the most incredible archaeological discoveries in the modern era: terracotta army. Thousands of life-size clay soldiers, chariots, and horses were buried with the emperor, meant to protect him in the afterlife. These figures have given us a glimpse into the power and grandeur of Qin Shi Huang's reign, demonstrating both his fear of death and his belief in the necessity of eternal protection. However, Qin Shi Huang's reign wasn't without its controversies. His ruthless quest for control led to numerous executions, and the destruction of texts that were seen as a threat to his authority. The burning of books and burying of scholars alive left a lasting impact on Chinese intellectual life, as it suppressed the flow of ideas and knowledge. Despite this, the centralization of power and the administrative reforms of the Qin dynasty laid the groundwork for future imperial rule. The Qin dynasty was short-lived, lasting only 15 years, but its legacy was significant. The empire that Qin Shi Huang established set the foundation for the Han dynasty and future Chinese dynasties, ensuring that China remained united and powerful for centuries to come. Following the fall of the Qin dynasty, China entered a period of uncertainty. But it was the Han dynasty that ultimately brought stability, prosperity, and cultural flourishing. The Han dynasty, which began in 206 BCE, is often considered one of the golden ages of Chinese civilization. It lasted for over 4 centuries, from 206 BCE to 220 CE, and its legacy would profoundly shape Chinese history for centuries to come. The first emperor of the Han dynasty, Liu Bang, came from humble origins. A former peasant and rebel leader, he seized power after the collapse of the Qin dynasty and defeated his rivals to become the founder of the Han. His reign marked the beginning of a new era, one defined by a more moderate and inclusive approach to governance than the harsh rule of the Qin. One of the major achievements of the early Han rulers was the establishment of a centralized government. The Han emperors built on the administrative systems that the Qin had begun, but they sought to soften the authoritarian policies that had sparked rebellion during the Qin era. Instead of relying solely on legalist principles, Han rulers introduced Confucianism as the state philosophy, which emphasized moral integrity, education, and respect for tradition. This shift in philosophy helped to legitimize imperial rule and provided a moral framework for governing the vast Chinese empire. The Han dynasty also saw the development of one of China's most enduring institutions, the civil service. The establishment of a bureaucratic system based on merit and education was a key factor in the longevity of the Han dynasty. Under the Han, the government began to recruit officials based on their knowledge and ability, rather than their birth or status. This merit-based system would remain a fundamental part of Chinese governance for over 2,000 years. Economically, the Han dynasty was a time of growth and prosperity. The state invested in infrastructure, building roads, canals, and a vast system of communication throughout the empire. The Silk Road, a network of trade routes that connected China to Central Asia, the Middle East, and even the Roman Empire flourished during the Han period. This trade brought immense wealth to China, as silk, tea, porcelain, and other goods were exported to the West, while foreign goods and ideas flowed into China. The Silk Road not only spurred economic growth, but also facilitated cultural exchange, introducing new technologies, religions, and ideas to Chinese society. In the field of science and technology, the Han dynasty was a time of remarkable innovation. The invention of paper during the Han period revolutionized communication and record-keeping, making it easier to spread knowledge throughout the empire. The Han also made advancements in astronomy, medicine, and engineering, with notable figures such as Zhang Heng, who invented the seismoscope to detect earthquakes, and Hua Tu, a renowned physician who performed surgical operations using anesthesia. The Han dynasty also saw the expansion of China's territory. Under Emperor Wu, the Han pushed the empire's borders further west, expanding into what is now modern-day Xinjiang and Central Asia. This expansion brought wealth and resources into the empire. but it also led to conflict with neighboring nomadic tribes, such as the Xiongnu. The Han military victories in these regions helped to secure China's northern and western borders and ensured the continued prosperity of the empire. Despite the glory and success of the Han dynasty, it eventually faced challenges. Corruption, weak leadership, and internal strife weakened the central government, leading to rebellions and uprisings. By 220 CE, the Han dynasty officially ended, marking the beginning of the Three Kingdoms period. However, the cultural and political legacy of the Han dynasty continued to shape China's imperial structure, influencing future dynasties for centuries to come. The Han dynasty's achievements in governance, culture, trade, and science left an indelible mark on Chinese history. It not only brought China a period of unparalleled prosperity, but also laid the foundation for the development of Chinese civilization as we know it today. Following the fall of the Han dynasty, China entered a period of fragmentation and instability, but it was the Tang dynasty, which began in 618 CE, that restored order and ushered in a golden age of cultural, political, and economic prosperity. The Tang dynasty lasted until 907 CE and was followed by the Song dynasty, which continued the cultural and technological advancements established by the Tang. Together, these two dynasties would shape the development of Chinese civilization in profound ways. The Tang dynasty is often regarded as one of China's most vibrant and cosmopolitan periods. Under Emperor Taizong and his successors, the empire experienced a level of political stability and military strength that allowed China to expand its influence across Asia. During this time, China became a center of international trade and culture, with bustling cities like Chang'an, modern-day Xi'an, serving as hubs for merchants, diplomats, and scholars from across the world. The Tang rulers established a strong, centralized bureaucracy that enabled them to effectively govern China's vast territories. They continued the use of Confucianism as the state ideology, but also embraced Buddhism, which had gained a strong foothold in China during the previous centuries. Buddhist teachings and monasteries flourished under the Tang, and the government sponsored the translation of important Buddhist texts from Sanskrit into Chinese, facilitating the spread of Buddhist philosophy and practices throughout the empire. The Tang dynasty was also a time of remarkable artistic and intellectual achievement. Poets like Li Bai and Du Fu are considered two of the greatest figures in Chinese literary history, their works celebrated for their depth, emotion, and vivid imagery. Tanjira painters, sculptors, and musicians produced works of unparalleled beauty and sophistication, many of which continue to be admired today. The Tang dynasty saw the flourishing of Chinese painting, particularly landscape painting, which would become a defining feature of Chinese art. In addition to its cultural achievements, the Tang dynasty was a time of significant technological innovation. The Temps invented block printing, which revolutionized the dissemination of books and knowledge, making printed materials more widely available and affordable. This invention helped foster a new wave of literacy and intellectual activity across China, leading to the rise of scholarly and scientific advancements. After the fall of the Tang dynasty, the Song dynasty rose to power in 960 CE, bringing with it a new era of cultural and economic prosperity. The Song period, lasting until 1279 CE, is often considered one of the most important in Chinese history, as it marked a time of great technological advancements and commercial expansion. The Song dynasty is known for its development of new technologies that would shape the future of China and the world. The invention of gunpowder during the Song period revolutionized warfare. The first known use of paper money occurred under Song rule, further facilitating trade and commerce. The Song also made advancements in astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. And the construction of massive infrastructure projects, such as the Grand Canal, helped to connect the north and south of China, fostering greater economic integration. Culturally, the Song dynasty is remembered for its emphasis on education and the arts. The civil service exams, which had begun under the Tang, were further refined during the Song period, and the system of merit-based bureaucracy became even more entrenched. This allowed for a more educated and skilled class of officials who could govern effectively and ensure the continued success of the empire. The Song era also saw the rise of Neo-Confucianism, a new interpretation of Confucian thought that sought to integrate it with Buddhist and Taoist ideas. shaping Chinese philosophy for centuries to come. Economic development. The Song dynasty oversaw one of the most remarkable periods of commercialization in Chinese history. New technologies in agriculture, such as improved irrigation and the widespread use of the plow, led to increased food production. This, in turn, supported the growth of cities and the expansion of trade. The Song economy was driven by a burgeoning merchant class. International trade flourished, especially along the maritime Silk Road. This period also saw the rise of a sophisticated urban culture, with bustling markets, theaters, and a vibrant public life. Despite their achievements, the Tang and Song dynasties faced significant challenges. Both dynasties struggled with internal rebellion, economic inequality, and external threats from nomadic tribes on China's borders. The Song dynasty, in particular, faced invasions from the Mongols, which ultimately led to its collapse in 1279 CE, however. The cultural, technological, and economic advancements of these dynasties had a lasting impact on China and the wider world. Laying the groundwork for the future development of Chinese civilization, the Tang and Song dynasties were periods of great cultural flourishing, technological innovation, and political stability. The final chapter in the history of ancient China is marked by the dramatic fall of the Qing dynasty, which had ruled China for over 250 years. The Qing dynasty, the last imperial dynasty of China, had enjoyed a period of relative prosperity and stability during the early years of its reign. However, by the 19th century, internal strife, external pressures, and the rapid modernization of the world began to unravel the empire's hold over its vast territories. The culmination of these challenges led to the overthrow of the Qing dynasty and the birth of the Republic of China in 1912. Changing the course of Chinese history forever, the Qing dynasty, established in 1644 by the Manchu people, was initially seen as a stabilizing force after a period of instability that followed the fall of the Ming dynasty. The Qing rulers, although foreign to the Chinese people, were able to maintain control by adopting many aspects of Chinese culture and governing traditions. Under emperors like Kangxi and Qianlong, the Qing dynasty expanded China's borders to their greatest extent, including the incorporation of Tibet, Xinjiang, and Mongolia. During this time, China saw impressive cultural and economic growth, flourishing arts, trade, and a strong central bureaucracy. However, by the mid-19th century, cracks began to appear in the Qing's seemingly unshakable power. The dynasty's inability to adapt to the rapid changes occurring in the world, coupled with a series of disastrous events within China, marked the beginning of its decline. One of the most devastating events was the Opium Wars. 1839 to 1842 and 1856 to 1860, a series of conflicts with the British Empire. These wars were fought over the trade of opium, a narcotic that the British were importing into China in exchange for tea, silk, and porcelain. The Qing dynasty's defeat in the Opium Wars led to the signing of the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842, which forced China to open up several ports to foreign trade, cede Hong Kong to Britain, and pay heavy reparations. This marked the beginning of what the Chinese call the Century of Humiliation, a period during which China's sovereignty was eroded by foreign powers. The internal pressures on the Qing dynasty were just as severe. The Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864, one of the deadliest civil wars in history, saw millions of Chinese peasants rise up against the Qing government, led by Hong Xiuquan, who claimed to be the brother of Jesus Christ. The Taiping forces sought to establish a new, radical religious kingdom. Although the rebellion was eventually crushed, it severely weakened the Qing dynasty and contributed to the growing dissatisfaction with its rule. By the late 19th century, the Qing dynasty was beset by corruption, inefficient governance, and a failure to modernize in the face of Western imperialism. The self-strengthening movement, an attempt by the Qing to reform and adopt Western technology, came too late. The dynasty's inability to fully embrace industrialization and modern governance further deepened its decline. In 1899, the Boxer Rebellion erupted, with a nationalist group of Chinese, known as the Boxers, rising up against foreign influence and the Qing government's failure to protect China's sovereignty. The rebellion was crushed by an alliance of foreign powers and the Qing government was forced to pay massive indemnities. These humiliations, along with widespread corruption and economic inequality, paved the way for the final downfall of the dynasty.